Hey everyone. I'm a little early today. It's 5 o'clock. So you guys caught me off guard today. But however, the reason why I'm here early is because I added a bonus interview. Had someone who reached out to me before, and she's about to come on in a minute. Um, hey Nicole. Hey Laura. So we had scheduled a time before, then our calendars meshed. They did not work together. And I'm gonna add her on now. We were trying to figure out when I could add her on, and even though I'm coming back on at 7 again, Nicole. So this is a bonus interview. So again, hi Laura.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? So I'm just explaining to everybody how we had booked before, but then you had to reschedule, and I was
Right.
trying to fit you in before I went on vacation. So even though my morning has been haywire, I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do it. I'm gonna make the time. Let's just do it. I'm gonna fit you in between now and my 7 o'clock. I want to do early enough so they didn't kind of roll into each other, and if I need a break between the two, I can do that. So thank you, Nicole, for joining me, and anybody else who may come on and watch it, or if you're going to catch the replay, I appreciate that as well. But this is someone who answered the call to one of my requests when I went into, I believe, a group or even on my Facebook page, and just said I was looking for people to interview, and she was like, I'll do it, I'll do it. So I'm excited when anybody wants to connect with me to have a conversation, because I believe this is much needed, and it's been interesting to say the least from the time I started. I believe I did my first interview, I believe August 5th, and I've interviewed every night except for, I believe, the 7th, because I had, maybe I did, well, I don't know, it's one night I did, I think night of the retreat or something. I didn't, it's one night I've missed. And so everything has been amazing. And every time something kind of falls off, it picks back up. So I'm just really excited to have you here. So Laura, please introduce yourself, tell people where you're from, what you do. And then at the end, I'll also give you opportunity if you have any businesses that you want to promote or whatever have you, to let you do that. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you fitting me in. My name is Laura Mosley. By day, I am a customer service rep for a social service organization. I'm a single mom of three, and I also am a domestic violence advocate. Try to help people, get them pointed in the right direction. I blog about my experiences with that particular topic. And I speak when I can, because I really like to tell my story so I can help as many people as possible. So,
Okay, well, that's awesome. We need to really connect on another level. I'll probably have you back during DV month then, because I too
awesome.
am a domestic abuse survivor, and I'm thriving in my after. What I also might want to connect you to, because I've been thinking about blogging, just never haven't been able to actually make it happen. I've written 2 books, but actually trying to get into the habit and flowing of blogging, whether I do it once a month, once a week, whatever have you. So that will be something I may want to connect with you to give me some tips on how
Perfect.
to do it.
Okay.
So anyway, let's get into this conversation. So the way this really started for me was I had a conversation with a couple women at a conference I was at about a month ago, and we were just talking about checking these boxes on particular applications, or, whether it's a brand new car, whether it's just a survey you're filling out online or whatever have you. So, would you, at this point in time, do you check the box single, divorce? Have you well, you said single, so you're not remarried.
Right.
So which box do you particularly check, and there's a particular reason why?
Um, I usually just pick single because I am in a relationship now, but it's, usually there's not a box for that, living with someone or anything like that.
Right.
So there's usually single, married, or divorced. I usually just put single because it's really not anybody's business what my status is. I mean, I'm not ashamed of being divorced, but uh, I usually just pick the single option just because they can just wonder.
That's good.
So,
The reason why we're having a conversation is because I felt kind of triggered. Like, I didn't know me personally, like, okay, I still check divorce. And I think that as much as I'm on here talking about the triggers of divorce, and I'm trying to help people get out of that negative mindset, and to
mhm.
understand that even though, you may have been divorced, you're not damaged, you're still good. However, at the same time too, just making sure people understand that, you shouldn't feel some kind of way because your marriage failed. And if you want to get married again, I'm trying to help people too, or people first time people who get married, that, you know, marriage is hard work. Sometimes it does not work out. You can't beat yourself up. But however, I think that you should put both best foot forwards to make sure that it does work, and so that everything can happen correctly.
Right.
So with that being said, so now, you know, you already answered a couple questions. You said you're in a relationship and all that stuff. So let's just go back. How long were you married?
I guess in total 26 years, but the abuse happened at year 24. And, you know, after that, he prolonged the divorce. I just couldn't do it anymore. I think that's enough, actually more than enough time to go through the punishments that I did. So I think when the divorce was all said and done, it was 26.
Okay, so if you don't, you said you don't mind talking about, some ask you a couple questions. So after you've been married some years, so after so many years of being married, all of a sudden now abuse happened, or did you see signs before that it was possible, but then it became physical? Like, was it maybe some verbal and emotional before for years that you just kind of overlooked because maybe you partook in it? And what I mean by partake, because, you know, we can get to an argument and hurt people, or, you know, you
Right.
say one cruel thing to me and I'm going to come back and say something cruel to you, but we don't think
Right.
about it as being abusive
Mm-hmm.
until, you know, something physical occurs. And then now we got to go back and like, man, well, what did I
What?
miss?
Yeah.
You know, right. So how was your story?
Exactly. He didn't really get physical until we married. He was 21 and I was 19. I was pregnant when we got married. So once our baby was 18 months old is when it kind of got, you know, it started amping up. Before that, we'd have arguments or disagreements. And, you know, you think, oh, you're young and dumb and, you know, these things happen. You're going to argue, you're married, you're from two different backgrounds. But the arguments started getting more personal. I mean, like you said, you know, he'd accuse or be upset about something, and then you're trying to defend yourself, and then it just goes up and up from there and escalates. So it wasn't until my baby was like 18 months old that he started getting physical. He'd throw that in every once in a while as a wild card, which I didn't like. And there towards the end, it got to be more and more. But um, I mean, he started launching like emotional abuse campaigns on me, and, you know, being young and naive and wanting to assume the best. You know, I come from a long line of married people. Nobody in my family virtually gets divorced. So I was all in. I was trying to make it work, and I had no idea what I was really up against until, you know, we got into the 13, 14, 15 year mark, and I'm like, this is insane. Um, but, you know, beforehand it was just, you know, disagreements that you feel like every married couple is going to have, you know, what's for dinner, or you know, whose turn it is to pick up the child at daycare, or I have to work. Oh, I have to work too. Who's going to watch the baby? Kind of arguments is the way it starts out. And then it goes from there. It can be really virtually touch any topic. So,
Okay, so when you think about it, so you said you married kind of young.
mm-hmm.
I always try to ask people, because I am, and I don't force it on anybody else. Are you a woman of faith? Like,
I
do you
am.
believe in God? Okay, so
I
awesome.
am.
So I know you were young. We probably don't think about stuff like this when we're young because we think we know everything, and may not have been as relationship wise with God as we probably need to be at 19, 20 years old. You know, I'm not saying that
Right.
some people are, some people aren't, but since you said that you were with child when you got married, did you all happen to go through counseling before you got married, or did you just like run off to the justice of the peace?
No, he didn't want to. My parents were like, I think that would be a good idea. We can go to our church or yours. And then when he said, well, his family didn't have a church, my parents were like, oh, well, you know, we have to make this child legitimate. I mean, he did ask me before I knew,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, we went ahead and, you know, wanted to make that commitment. Supposedly, you know, it didn't matter at that
Mm-hmm.
point. We just had to move it up a little bit, but, um, I don't know now, looking
Okay.
back.
So hindsight is 2020, and everything that you saw that came out, even though you were with child, if you all would have went through premarital counseling and you would have seen some like signs or something wouldn't have agreed, do you think you still would have married him because you were with child, or do you think you might have held off until you were a little older and maybe kind of figured some things out?
I
Or
think I probably,
because of, and then another thing too, with you being young, I know your parents were, privy to the relationship and what was going on. I'm quite sure they had a big influence. Or do you think you would have just married him because your parents might have said that this would be the best thing because of?
well, it got to the day of, and my mom's like, you don't have to marry him just because. And I said, yeah, I do. I think, this child needs a father, and, I'm in love with him, and, it's the right thing to do. Which moms always seem to know things now. But, I think if we went through counseling, I think he was such a good actor. I think I would have gone ahead and gone through with it, because he mirrored, and this is me looking back, he mirrored and said everything that lined up with what I believed. So I think that he would have. Now, when we went through like a type of counseling once our child was born to have him baptized, he did not like what Monsignor had to say about his belief system, but I kind of saw a little glimpse of the devil there. But I don't know. I think with just marriage counseling, I think he would have acted through that whole thing.
Okay. So when you started seeing the signs and things were taking a tanker. We know, being women of faith, we always, and of course, I think one of the biggest things you said that I took so far has been that you come from a long line of people that were married. So divorce was just pretty much not an option. So do you feel like you pretty much stayed for not, and I'm quite sure you loved your husband. We always do, whether they're abusive or not. We don't get married to an abuser, or we don't marry people because we think that they're going to treat us bad. They're treating us good and they're giving us a PR person.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that staying with him as long as you did, having more children and having what played? Do you think your family and what your belief system was as far as marriage was concerned played a major part in it, because you just, of course, didn't believe in divorce, which is the awesome thing, not to believe in divorce, but of course you want to stay safe
Mm-hmm.
and be okay. So do you think your family and your belief systems played a huge part in that?
I do. And, I mean, in today's society, people don't seem to make the commitment anymore. And I grew up watching my parents disagree and have arguments, but they'd make up and they'd tell each other they were sorry. And that wasn't happening here. And I got, I guess there's kind of a shame associated with this, going through this. So I only told my parents a small portion of what was going on. So, my mom and dad were always like, well, whatever you feel like you need to do, we'll support you. Have you tried counseling? Well, we tried counseling multiple times, and it was always the counselor was a quack, or I was the nut job that needed a counselor, not him. Um,
Gaslighting at its best.
yeah, exactly. So I just, kept praying, and I talked to my parents, and, I mean, you get to the point where you're isolated and you don't really have any friends to talk to. So, you start journaling and stuff, and it's like, well, I'm in it this far. Maybe I need to keep going. Maybe he'll change. I mean, all these what if scenarios, because I think every abuse victim, that's what they feel like. Oh, that we live with that hope that they're going to change, that they're going to wake up one morning and go, I've been awful, I won't ever do that again. I mean, they'll say that, but
Right.
that does not happen. They will be a different person can be up to 6 months, and then you see that Jekyll and Hyde personalities flip again, and it's like, so. And then I think to the point too, I got numb to it, thinking, well, I'm married, I'm in it, I'm just gonna, I'm all in,
Right.
so I'm just gonna live with it. Maybe, I guess if he doesn't, want this anymore, maybe he'll move on, but he wasn't interested in moving on.
So you believe
So,
wholeheartedly that, and I heard you kind of say it before, so I just wanted to like see what that looks like. What does you putting your all and effort into making this marriage work, what does that look like for you?
well, it varied on what we argued about, what made him mad. I didn't wear makeup around. I mean, when I got off work and was at home with the kids, I didn't wear makeup. I put my hair in a ponytail. I was in t-shirts and sweatpants, I wasn't glamorous enough. I didn't keep the house clean enough. So, I mean, I tried everything that he suggested. I was always willing to meet halfway, and it's like going all the way, not meeting halfway with your partner that you're supposed to. I'd make meal plans and have meals ready for him when he got home. I'd clean the house like a fiend, handled all the educational stuff with the kids, the bills, worked 2 and 3 jobs. And it's exhausting when you're like, feel like you're spinning your wheels, and you've tried literally everything, gone to counseling when he requested it. I would suggest it. He told me we didn't do enough date nights. So I'd start planning date nights, even though we were, in debt up to our eyeballs trying to be creative. Anything and everything, you name it, I did it. Things that probably, not proud of having to do. And it's like, geez, something's got to give, because he's not doing anything. All of this, when you sit and when you just get to that point, you stop and think, wow, I'm doing it all. There's something wrong with that. What is he doing?
So you gave 120%, and he put all of 20% in. So, and of course we know that in any marriage, it's all or nothing. Nobody can give 50-50 of themselves. Right. They have to give 110%, or if not more of themselves. And it is work to complete a marriage. So right. When you got to year 24 and you just like, you know what? I've had enough. This is it. What was the straw that broke the camel's back, actually?
Year 24 got kind of scary. All along would accuse me of cheating on him occasionally. A couple years prior, I had an issue with my gallbladder, and I didn't have any health insurance. So I had to, the doctor's like, okay, well, you're going to have to go on a fat-free diet. You need to exercise. You need to lose the weight. That'll help. But fat-free is the way to go. And I started dropping weight off of me. I had to do it. It was making me ill to the point where I couldn't work. I couldn't take care of my family. So, as I'm doing that, I made my health a priority, where usually everybody else is a priority. I made my health a priority, and that made him mad because it took the focus off of him. So he'd start, oh, well, you're going to the gym to get beautiful for somebody else. I'm like, no, I feel so much better when I go to the gym, and then I can come home and I can cook dinner, and I'm not exhausted when I get off work and do the bare minimum. This is making me a better person. But it got kind of scary because, he was accusing me of this a lot more. He was physical a lot more. And the night of, he beat me in front of my 10-year-old child at the time. Wow. And, and then my kids fled the house, and I don't blame them. I didn't want them there. And he did that. He knocked me out. I had a concussion later on that evening as well. And my oldest child got home and called the police. And it was on the news. So,
wow. Look, I made the same face you made at the same time. Like, oh, that will kind of like.
Yeah. So, I was sitting in my car trembling and had my 2 little dogs in my lap, while the police pulled up, and then he ran, and I had 8 police officers in my yard trying to find him. And, my daughter was like, hey, I think he went this way. And then she slipped and hurt her leg. So the ambulance had gotten there, and they wanted to check me out. And I'm like, no, I'll go to the hospital. I need to take her. And they're like, well, we can take you. And I said, no, it's going to be $2,000 a trip. No, I'm good. I just lived like 1.5 miles, 2 miles down the road from the hospital. So when I took her, when I got there, they're like, okay, ma'am, this way. And I'm like, no, I'm here for her. And the nurse goes, really? Have you seen yourself? And I said, okay, well, deal with her first. Get to me later. So yeah, I wasn't in my right mind. It's like I was watching a horror movie on TV, like it was somebody else. It was very strange, but it's just kept amping up and getting scarier and scarier. And I tried to start saving some money because I thought, you know what, he's losing his mind, and I can't keep my kids here with this, and I can't be here with this, and so I kind of started planning, but he made that decision for me ultimately. And, this sounds bad, but I'm kind of glad that it went down that way. Not that I wanted a beating or anything, not that,
Right.
but that he
Look, from
initiated it.
one person to one DV victim or a survivor to another. I get it, but I get you explaining it for everybody else. It's easier when they take the ball out of our courts, especially. I mean, I don't have any children, so I don't know what that's like to have children in the midst of it. I can only go by what people tell me and what they've been through. So I commend you wholeheartedly. And I can also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I can also gather and say I think that one of the other reasons that you probably stayed as long as you did was because you had kids involved, and being a single mom trying to go from a two income household, even though you may have worked 3 or 4 jobs to make the ends meet, to
Right.
go without that particular income, not knowing if child support is going to be given, if they'll follow through with child support because you're out the house. That's another controlling mechanism. Looking for a place that you can afford that's going to house all of you and your children. I believe that probably played a big part in your thought process of how do I get away from this so we are all safe and we're taken care of. So
Exactly.
I do understand wholeheartedly. So since you mentioned your kids, let's talk about your kids now. Then I'll go back to, things of triggers and things that you may be going through now. I'm excited to know that you're in a relationship now. That's a blessing. But with your
Absolutely.
kids being somewhat as young as they were, because I know you said your youngest was a 10-year-old at the time, that has to be devastating. How have they bounce back? Have they bounced back from it? Did you get them counseling? Have they had conversations with you? So could you explain like all that process and going through the divorce and things like that?
Hmm. I offered to get all of my children counseling. My 2 oldest were already adults. They were like, "Nah, we're fine." I did get counseling for a little while for myself and my youngest, who's almost 15. He'll be 15 next month.
Wow.
I think he doesn't miss his dad as much as a male role model.
Mm.
Um, I think, like parent day, or he'll see kids, dads taking him to school. And I think that makes him feel a little sad, but he knows what his dad's like. He has to go stay with his dad, a week in the summer, and usually like at Christmas or fall break or something. And while my ex lives in near the beach, and my youngest likes the beach, he's usually day 2, he's calling me going, "I'm so over it." So, I'm like, "But the beach," and he goes, "Yeah, I'm still over it." So, yeah, I
Wow.
think it's just the male role model that he misses. The other 2, my oldest was around the longest, and not I wasn't the only one abused. I mean, he did abuse my kids to a certain degree, um, and the oldest one was the one that experienced the most. In fact, my oldest was born a boy and is now a transgender woman. And I just, it always makes me wonder if the abuse had something to do with
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know. I mean, and I will always wonder that. And I've accepted her, totally. Her dad, not so much. I mean, it's not an easy thing, but I just wonder if that had something to do with the thought process behind that. Like, I don't want to be a man because, just that doesn't look appealing at all.
With that being the case, and I can get wholeheartedly why you will feel that way about it, and that your 2 oldest have not decided to have counseling. I can see where you would think that may play a huge impact on it. But how are they? Because okay, so you didn't say your youngest is a boy, your oldest is a transgender. Is your middle child a girl or a boy?
Girl.
Okay, girl. So as far as relationships are concerned now,
Mm-hmm.
how are they? How are they doing with dating? One of the things, and this would be a whole other subject probably during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I have, being someone who loves God's people, I have no judgment for anybody. Whatever they decide to do, I just want them to be in God's will. Because I am nobody to judge you, but I'm not perfect by any means. When we talk about transgenders, though, a lot of the in the African American community, those people that I've associated myself with, because I also know, and I'm quite sure you do as well too, that DV is even more prevalent in that community because they don't talk about it. They don't feel like they have an out. They don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like anybody in law enforcement is going to assist them. Kind of like they ask for what they get. But I have run across quite a few transgender men who are now living lives as females who refuse or hesitate disclosing that they're transgender, which lets them know if they're dating men who have no clue that
Right.
they're actually, that they're, especially if they haven't had all the surgeries that are needed to complete the transition.
Mm-hmm.
And when these men feel like they've been, for lack of better words, duped, hoodwinked, bamboozled, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes violent because they feel like they've been um they're
Lied
they're
to.
they're they've been lied to and they've been violated in themselves, and their reaction is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So for safety measures, do you feel like your now your oldest now daughter is has is she dating? Is she like in relationships? Does she kind of shy away from relationships because of everything that she suffered during, your husband's wrath, during the
Mm-hmm.
marriage, seeing, because even though, you want your children to see positive relationships, but of course you attest to the fact being your entire relationship was negative and it didn't give the correct image of what a happy marriage or what a happy family could be. So do
Right.
you think that this stuff plays a part in your older children dating now and having relationships?
I do. With my oldest being transgender, when she was a man, she was married to a woman, and the woman was very abusive
Oh,
to my
wow.
oldest. Yeah. So I think that stigma is there. And in my middle child, unfortunately, she's always a daddy's girl. I am too. I get that. But she's kind of I love her, but she's a chameleon. She, will be with me and do things with me and tell me things one way. And then, when I've said, I don't need to know about your dad as long as he's, being a safe person, that's fine. And don't, let him know what my business is. She does. And
Mm.
I don't want to know what he's doing. As long as he's a safe person and I can safely let my 15-year-old go there, that's fine. But I'm not in his business anymore. He doesn't get to be a ringmaster of this circus. So, you know, do I think it plays a part? Yeah. And my middle child is now expecting a baby, which she doesn't have a job and, they're not married. So I'm trying to be supportive, but yeah, I think it does, affect their relationships more than they want to
You
talk
met.
about. Yeah, and it's kind of hard and painful to watch. But I mean, as a parent, regardless, you have to watch your children struggle and be successful in their own way. And you just have to sit by and go, I'm here if you need me, but I can't change what you're doing. And I worry the most, I think, about my youngest because he's on the autism spectrum, and he's very verbal, and I've worked for so long. I just got the diagnosis for him in December, so I've worked trying to get that proven since he was little. But I was always crazy or trying to see things that weren't there, but he just did things differently than the other two that I noticed. And of course, his dad's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with my son. Well, when you have autism, when you're on that spectrum, there's nothing wrong with you. You learn differently. And I think that really shows the difference between he and I and our styles. And but yeah, I feel like I'm watching all of these kids struggle, and I got counseling for the youngest one, but he just got to the point where he didn't like it. And he got to where he had a very nice, pretty young counselor, very capable, but he got to the point where he was telling her what she wanted to hear, not what he was feeling. So I kind of said, okay, we may continue this later, but right now he's just kind of playing you. And it's
It's good that you
hard.
recognize that, though.
Yeah.
You
No, she
know,
was
that
like,
you were
"Oh,
actually
really?"
recognize it, right?
Yeah, because she would discuss with me what they discussed. I mean, to a certain degree, not to
Mhm. Right. I
violate
mean, patient
confidentiality,
confidence, yeah,
but
but right. I get
and I'm
that, but
like,
still, right.
he's playing you, you know. So I don't know. I'd like to continue therapy. I haven't done it in a while. My therapist, we live in a very rural area, so they're a little harder to come by. The closest big city is like an hour away, and nobody wants to drive that back and forth. So my counselor was a man, very nice, but when you have to start getting into what happened, how were you abused, I can't. I'm sorry, sir, I can't talk about that with you. I don't feel comfortable, and
So
I think you should.
you're triggered by having those conversations with men about your abuse.
Well, I think I'm getting better about it, but usually my conversations are with women.
Understood. I mean, sometimes it's just a level of comfortability because we know when men are the ones that are abusive to us, it's kind of hard to trust another man because we think they all think alike and they'll take their side regards to the fact that even though they're not supposed to. However, some of their conversations and some of their accusations will make it seem as if they are taking the side of the abuser.
Hmm.
I had to learn myself too, talking with my therapist, that because they really are they don't have all the answers and they're not answering your questions for you. What they do is they give you pivotal questions to make you think so you can come up with your
Hmm.
own solutions. That
Right.
sometimes some of the questions that they pose or sometimes some of the suggestions that they give to provoke conversation or thought processes will trigger us because it sounds like what our abuser would have done. So that's why I think we're triggered, because it took me a minute to do that too, because I feel the same way you did and I kind of shut
Hmm.
down for my
Right.
therapist, and I even stopped going for a minute. He reached out to me. He was like, okay, for real, seriously, I need to know, if not, even if you don't want to come back to me for whatever reason, could you please tell me where the communication breakdown is, because I need to know, so if I'm helping another client, where I overstep my boundaries. So that's when I decided that if I really wanted help, I needed to be transparent and open with myself as well as him. And it helped him while also helping myself, because what I realized too is, because we get to the part whereas we shut down because we're talking to a male and we think they don't understand. I
Hmm.
did the same thing in my relationship with my abuser, because they don't care about how we feel. We can
Right.
sit there and tell them how we feel about certain things, but they gaslight us and make us feel like our feelings don't matter or our feelings are unjustified. And that makes us feel some kind of way. So when we talk to a male role model in the therapy portion of it, and they ask the same questions or treat us the same way, that triggers us to want to shut down completely because we shut down in our relationship. So I totally get it. I'm
Hmm.
glad you're identifying it now, though, and
Right.
actually more willing and capable to thinking about, making another chance at it. But I would suggest definitely, if you're more comfortable with a woman, get to it. And I would even, and this is just me talking, with everything that has transpired, whether your kids feel like they need assistance or not, I would not necessarily, the best word to come up with be trick, but I don't want to use the word trick. Kind of convince them that in order to support you as you're continuing to walk out this journey of healing, that you need them to go with you to some of your counseling sessions. And I believe that during some of those counseling sessions, it could work, it could not work, but I believe that it may bring out some things that they probably never even thought of, and that would help them in the process as well. That's just, my thought process. I could be definitely wrong, but I really think that at this stage in the game, even though they say, nah, no, we don't need it, we both know, even me by listening to what you've told me and what has transpired, that they need some type of assistance, at least just to
Hmm.
kind of like get things off their chest and talk about some things, because I really feel, you wonder, not saying that the reason why your oldest now daughter decided to change, because it may have played a part with your relationship. However, with him marrying an abuser, wondering if he was attracted to that by, not necessarily by accident, but sometimes because we're around so much negativity and we see stuff. I tell people all the time, when you're in an abusive relationship, if you have children and your children are affected by it, one of two things can occur. Not always, but can. They'll either be the abuser or they'll become abused. And most times it's females that become the abusee and males become the abuser. But at times there are some men that become very, very passive.
Mm-hmm.
And because they feel like they want to do better and please and do all this other stuff, they allow certain dominating women overtake them. And like I said, because women are can be just as abusive as men. I don't take
Absolutely.
sides. I don't sugarcoat anything. It's less likely only because men don't report it, not necessarily because there's not as many people, not as many women out there that are abusers. It's just that men are less likely to report it because they don't want to be embarrassed. So I
Right.
really do appreciate this conversation. You've taken a whole nother twist on it. So thank you so much. So right now, what would you say, if since now that you're dating again, I'm really excited about that. What do you say? Well, one, are you considering, or would you considering remarrying? One, and two, are there things that still trigger you in the dating process, that may keep you, that reminds you of the marriage, or even just going through the process of the divorce? Like, what triggers you with the divorce?
Um, well, I would consider it again, but it would be probably a very long, long time from now. But I guess just the process of disagreeing triggers me to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't want to make him mad. I don't want to make him mad, but I need to say what I need to say. And that always, it's always kind of like at the back of my mind, and, but he doesn't react anywhere near, you know, so I'm glad of that. And, talking about what personally happened to me to him, has fostered trust for sure. I feel so sorry for my therapist. I should probably give him another chance, but he's such a good guy. I will say, he told me, he goes, okay, if you're not going to talk to me, then you need to tell your story. You need to put it out there. You need to, talk about it, because the more you talk about it, the less power it has over you.
Very
So,
true.
and he's completely correct. And so I talk about it. I'll talk with other podcasters. I will talk live. I've talked to the high school, the local high school, about dating violence. I've talked in different situations, and I blog, and so I'm getting it all out. And I think that's been the most healing, because I love to write. I started off my young life as a journalism major, and he just wasn't having it, So I get to write now anytime I want. If I want to get up at 3 a.m. and write, I can. And I'm getting a very positive response by what people are reading that I've written, and they're enjoying it. And so, it's very healing to let people know, hey, you're not alone. This happened to me, and I'm here if you need to contact me. But I think I don't know anymore. I think dating should be a very long process anyway, for anybody in any situation, because I think I was reading something the other day that, narcissists can't keep up the act for more than 6 months. I disagree with that, but I think if
Okay.
you're with somebody long enough, they're going to show you their true colors. So,
I agree, but I disagree. And the reason why I disagree is because I tell people all the time, and this is one of the things, and I didn't know if I was going to say it this live or not, but we're an ever evolving person. And you aren't the same person you were before you started this live. And I'm not the same person I was before I started this live. So I'm definitely not the same person I was back in my 19s, my 20s, and things like that. So people, they will give you the PR person as best they possibly can. I think that we do see signs. And by the time with dealing with narcissistic people, by the time they start showing their narcissistic traits, they come out like kind of slow and easy. And
mm-hmm,
by the time they come out and they show us their true colors, the average person has already smitten with this person, and they've already kind of captured your heart or captured your attention, where you kind of always want to give them a pass. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that I'm glad you're going with caution, of course, most definitely. Um, would you say this time, if this relationship leads towards marriage, are you adamant about doing premarital counseling beforehand?
I would say, yeah. I would say, regardless. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because that's one of the things I've been talking about all this month, and I think, like I said, this is not for me bashing divorce, or I'm really trying to give people a solution so
Mm-hmm.
we can put an end to divorce. Because I am very advocate for um, the institution of marriage, especially with with God being a foundation. And I really believe that what happens is when we get so head over heels with somebody, we so in love, we don't even think about the what ifs or what could possibly go wrong. And if we take the time to sit down and talk to someone who is not biased, and I don't even believe necessarily, even though we both come from backgrounds, Christian backgrounds, I don't necessarily always believe that your pastor or even the other person's pastor is someone who should necessarily counsel you. Do I believe if that's one of their stipulations for you being married by them, by all
Mm-hmm.
means. But I also have to be very transparent and honest in saying I believe that you should talk to a professional, somebody
Absolutely.
with the titles or the letters behind their name that don't have any not necessarily not a Christian base or a foundation, but just don't have any affiliation with a church, or that they and
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't know the either one of you, and can ask those difficult questions that will make you think, because sometimes those difficult questions or difficult conversations is what we refuse to have, and when we refuse to have them, I think we miss stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are some things I believe that, we're never going to necessarily always uncover. And sometimes those things just have to come out in the wash. But if we have start those hard conversations when something like conflict comes up, as the good minister Delvin said earlier this month, you will be able to identify it and have conversations pertaining to it that would help you figure it out. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship. People have to realize that marriage is a full-time job. It's really more than a full-time job. So I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate you. And now that I know that you are a DV survivor, when I have these conversations in October, if you're available, I would love to try to have you on in the month of October as well, to just talk strictly about domestic violence.
I would love it.
Awesome. So is there anything you want to say in closing that can give somebody some tips, some tools, some advice about going through the traumas and triggers of divorce, or even how you support marriage, or about children? Anything that you want to just close out with? And then if you want to add anything, how people can contact you if they want to get you on their podcast or things like that, how
Okay.
they can reach out to you.
My thinking before, when I was married, is I can't let my children come from a broken home. That I'm better off with this person. I've since found out your children need to see you happy and safe, and not have to, come home to a battlefield every day. So divorce is not necessarily a failure. Like I tried everything, and I'm not a perfect person. I'm imperfect, and thankfully God loves me anyway. But I even went as far as going to my church. I'm Catholic, or I was born Catholic. And the priest was like, well, you need to pray harder and go home and love your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. I said, have you ever been married? He says, no. I said, have you ever dated? He said, yes. I said, and that's not what he's doing isn't wrong. Well, sometimes we only see our part of it. We don't own our own part of it.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yeah, I scoured the Bible. I mean, God does not want us to be unevenly yoked. So, and my parents were like, you tried. We don't want you to come home in a box.
Amen.
So now, as far as how to contact me, I have a blog. It's called the DV Walking Wounded, as in domestic violence, because so many times Walking Wounded is kind of associated with veterans, and no disrespect to veterans, but we've been through our own war. And it's called dvwalkingwounded.me, which is my blog. I also have the DV Walking Wounded inspirational Facebook group, so you can always join that, and I can be contacted either way.
I'm doing it now. Go ahead.
So, and I just blog at random. I honestly, I just write down things that trigger me. I'll see something on TV or, a conversation I overhear, or like July 4th, is Independence Day. What that meant to me. My Independence Day was September the 17th, you know, so that resonates with me, and just things like that, things that people don't normally connect with, so people can see, what triggers me, or how I'm doing, or what I'm going through at the current moment. It just kind of, it's, I don't know, one of my friends significant others said that they thought that was kind of narcissistic, and I'm like, I survived all of this. I don't know what to say other than I'm going to write about it. And this is just a journal. It just happens to be public. So, you
Pretty
know,
much.
if people don't want to read it, they don't have to. The inspiration that I provide on my Facebook page is just things, statistics and funny things that make you think. Like, I took all my red flags and made a dress out of it. And you see this woman in this red ball gown, just things that, because if somebody is going through it and doesn't know what to do, something's going to trigger, hey, I need to get out. Hey, she keeps flashing the National Domestic Violence Hotline on there occasionally. Maybe I need to call that. Or, oh, well, wow, I never thought about this person being a narcissist, or, coercive control. Most people don't realize that's a thing, because it wasn't really till year 19 when people were like, you're being abused. And I'm like, no, I'm not being abused. I was being abused, and some people don't realize that. We live in denial, and hopefully something, whether it's my blog or it's the inspirational page, if it resonates with them, or something that I say, like on here, they can reach out and, or, maybe that'll inspire them to go talk to a local advocate and get started. I don't know. The possibilities are endless.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Miss Laura. I really appreciate you. I'll connect with Miss Laura. I'm quite sure she'll be connected. Well, she's definitely connected with me now, if not before. I just liked your page. I'm excited about connecting with you, and just the things that you're doing. So thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. Even though we had to reschedule a couple times, I'm glad that we finally got this on. And some of the stuff you gave today was good content. You are definitely in my prayers. Sarah Barra says Christ wasn't the foundation for the last dude. Oh, wow. So, yes, Sarah, I'm definitely praying for you. Thank you for continuing to support me and being on my lives. You are amazing. And Just So Real, thank you for joining me. And Nicole, if you're still there, thank you so much, my dear. I will be back on in about an hour and 15 minutes with the lovely Ebony Lachelle, who is scheduled for tonight at 7 p.m. So if you all are free, please come back at 7. For those watching the live or watch live, I appreciate you. Those who are watching the replay, please continue to like, share, comment, and all that other good stuff. Share these with your family and friends. If this is your first time seeing this, please go back to my page and continue, or go back and watch all the other lives they have. Everybody has been giving excellent conversation and good tips and things to just make you think about what it takes to work in a marriage, what it takes to get through and overcome divorce, and let you know that you're not alone, that this is something you can overcome. You're not damaged goods. You're still amazing in everybody's eyesight, including God's. And that if you're talking about and contemplating marriage, to let you know again that it's work, and there are just certain things that you need to do and consider before you just jump head in. And I think that because we come on with this content beforehand, some of us are older in age, which means we've been through stuff. And I know the younger generation be like, y'all be thinking, y'all trust me when we tell you we're trying to save you from a world of hurt and heartache. And so that your marriage can really survive, and we can get back to having the marriages that last 45, 55, 65 years, and that the sentiment till death do us part really means something and has value to it. So this is your girl, Y Renee. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Miss Laura. I appreciate you. And I'll
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.